Hello and welcome to The Entrepreneurial Musician, a coaching service, podcast, and blog preparing today's musicians for tomorrow's realities. This is TEM227, titled Spotted Online, featuring Nate Zeisler, Gill Andrews, and Josh Spector. Thank you to Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for TEM. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. There are going to be some details very soon, but there are TEM classes and workshops coming in January, so stay tuned for that since that is very soon. And I also wanted to take a second to shout out the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra musicians whose t-shirt I am wearing. I really hope that you all are back on a stage playing sometime very, very soon. There's a vaccine. I've been saying there's a vaccine on the horizon. There's a vaccine. It's just going to take a while for people like me and most of the people in that orchestra to get it. But boy, I cannot wait to be in the audience, and hopefully we'll be lucky enough to, again, to share that stage with you all. But you are all in my thoughts. All right, so Spotted Online is a semi-regular format here for TEM where I find three things that I have spotted online. My naming is always so creative that I think bring value to me as a creator, as a musician, as an entrepreneur. And today's links are from, I already told you, Nate Zeisler, Gill Andrews, and Josh Spector. So let's start with Nate Zeisler. Nate was actually the guest for TEM 42. He teaches out of the Colburn School. He does really incredible stuff. He's a great teacher. He's a great writer. I've actually known him personally. Know his parents. He's great. And my wife is actually very close. Close because he recently passed away, unfortunately, with Nate's father, who was just Dennis, who was this giant in the music education world and in the band world, and there was a huge smile plastered on my face every single time I walked into a room and I saw that man was there. And I didn't even get to spend that much time with him, but the time I did spend was, felt really special. He was one of those kind of humans. Well, Zate, 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 yes. Most people know him as Nate. Nate and I are so close that I actually call him Zate. That's totally not true. But Nate is cut from the same cloth, and his mother's amazing too. But anyway, I digress. But those people are worth digressing over. So Nate is doing something very cool. He has committed to doing 5 tweets a day for 100 straight days on Twitter, no exceptions. And he is, as I'm sitting here recording this, he is currently on day 40 of the 100. And it's been an interesting thing to watch. I noticed about 40 days ago when all of a sudden he started tweeting a lot, and it seemed like he was coming in hot, as they say. And I was like, because he didn't used to tweet all that much, and then he was suddenly tweeting a lot, and they were good tweets. And I thought to myself, I'll be honest, I was like, there's no way he can sustain this, because I've done the same thing too, where it's like, I'm going to be super present on LinkedIn. And then for like a week, I'm just like firing in all directions. And then I go back to not posting anything. But then he shared, or maybe he shared right away. And I just noticed that he was doing a thing, which is the 5 tweets a day for 100 days, no exceptions. I'm reminded of my performance and pedagogy blog. I took a year, it might have been 2012, 2014, I don't know, it was a while ago, where I committed to 3 blog posts a week, no exceptions, and I did it, which was really good. What do you know? My readership went way up, like the unique visitors, the time they spent, like all of that stuff. It worked, and then I had a lot of stuff to share about as well. It wasn't just sharing the same one thing 100 times. So anyway, first of all, Nate has really good content, and that's why I had him on TEM 42, because he has great. He recently posted a list of artist superpowers that translate to the real world, which was cool. But I'm also appreciating the fact that he's being honest and open about how hard it has been to grow an organic Twitter following. And he's kind of sharing about that in real time, which I think is fascinating because it all of the platforms work the same way, and Twitter can definitely be that way. Where it just doesn't someone replied to one of his tweets where it's like basically you shout into the void, you shout into the void, then someone who you know notices, then you shout into the void, then you shout into the void, then someone you don't know or five someones you don't know notice. And if you keep showing up over and over and over again, then you will build a following. And when you're providing value like Nate is currently doing, if you do it for long enough, the audience will come. They just will. But it's been really cool that he's been providing. I can't read. It's at Nate Zeisler, and the links, as always, to all this stuff are in the show notes, which you can find at tem.fm/blog, or you can just click on the show notes tab on tem.fm, and that will link you to. Not only is there a page full of all 227 episodes for show notes, but also right at the top there's a search bar where you can search just the show notes. And so if it's a name, if it's a topic, anything that it's really handy. So obviously I think it's handy. That's why I put it there. Anyway, I recommend Nate following along for the content and following along for his journey. Again, he's 40 out of 100 days in. So yeah, go check out Nate's Twitter feed. The next one is someone who I had never heard of last night until last night, and her name is Gill Andrews. And if you're listening, that's spelled Gill. If you're listening, as if like if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, it's not like I'm flashing her name on the screen. So if you're listening or watching or any of the above, you don't know how to spell her name. It's a cool spelling, Gill. And she, YouTube, you know how it recommends, like the recommendation engine for YouTube is not necessarily super helpful sometimes. It's not as helpful as some other recommendation engines online, at least I've found. But it nailed it last night. It popped up as the next video it was going to autoplay was a video by Gill, 35-minute video titled "How to Evaluate Copy Quickly." And I watched the entire thing. Like I just sat there and watched the entire thing. I posted this, by the way, to the TEM blog. I have a still relatively new series called Masterclass Monday, which every Monday I am posting some link. So far, most of them have been videos. There was a podcast episode where someone was a guest, but an example of the ones that I have posted. Elizabeth Gilbert, the incredible author, talking about your elusive creative genius. One of my favorites, which was a 90-second long clip, was Quincy Jones talking on the best piece of advice that he ever received, which already I'm in, right? Quincy Jones, who is a brilliant artist, talking about the best piece of advice he ever received. And it turns out that that came from Nadia Boulanger, which I was like, this is screaming. This is in my wheelhouse. This content was made for me. So that's there. And then Dory Clark on overcoming writer's block. And she is an author, but this goes and she says right in the video, and this is another super short one. She talks about how this is any kind of an artist block at all. And she recommends action rather, and it's specific. It's cool stuff. So I'm posting something like that every Monday, and this was one of the ones that I posted. I just posted it, how to evaluate copy quickly. She talks about in this video, she talks about the importance of copy, and that she shared a slide where there's an industry standard of like 19 bullet points of questions to ask yourself when evaluating copy. And I saw that and I was like, oh, this is a really handy resource. And then she said, actually, I don't think that's very useful. And I was like, oh, do tell. And she talked about how it's those 19 bullet points. It's highly complex and it's not necessarily that effective. And a bunch of the questions won't apply to you, whatever it is that you are that you're writing your copy about. And she streamlines things into 3 questions. And I love the questions. The first one is, huh? With a question mark. And it's what the hell does this mean is the other way that she puts it. Um, is this thing that you are writing about, is it clear to your audience is the question. And do they understand what you're saying? Do they understand what you're selling? Do they understand what action specifically you are hoping that they take? And she obviously breaks all of this down. The second one is prove it, or as she puts in parentheses, you don't say, which a lot of times copy will make claims that are not backed up at all. And she suggests that you use data or social proof to back up your assertions. Social proof, which is something I've talked about a lot, but until like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, I had no idea what the hell social proof was. It turns out they didn't mention social proof in music history class at Northwestern University or in, well, any class that I've ever taken. Social proof is when I take your online course or I listen to your album and I'm blown away, and then I talk about how incredibly poignant your album is, and you then put my quote up on your stuff. Because, of course, I think Masterclass Monday is worth your time because that's why I'm taking the time to put it up on the TEM blog. But if you tell somebody that it's worth their time, that means a lot more than me telling someone that my creation is worth their time. And so that's the social proof where we do have to prove it. And then the last one is how do I care, or in parentheses, so bloody what? The question here is why should the audience care? Why should the reader or the listener care? And you are going to be passionate about, I'm passionate about the Entrepreneurial Musician podcast. I promise you, I am more passionate about it than any of you listening. And that goes for the people who pay me every single time I post one of these as my Patreon patrons. You are the reason why this thing keeps going, and you enable, you're amazing. I refer to you as my Patreon family. You obviously care enough that you gave me your credit card information, actually entered it into Patreon, and have kept it there as I have repeatedly charged you a very small amount of money. At any point, you could pull the plug on that. So you care about this, right? You care that it exists, you consume it. You don't care as much as I do. I care enough to make 227 of these, right? So even my my true fans, as Kevin Kelly would call them, ain't going to care about my baby as much as I do. And so, if you're trying to sell a service or a good, the audience has to care, that has to be convinced that this is important to them, right? It doesn't matter that you think that, it doesn't matter that you know it's important to them. I know the value of someone getting outside advice on their career, on productivity, on balancing priorities, all of that. And it's funny, as musicians, we, especially classical ones, we pretty much all subscribe to this master apprentice model, right? Where we spend one-on-one, we spend an hour per week for an extended period of time when we're younger with people who can do the thing that we want to do, and we work one-on-one with them. However, and people, I mean, geez, when you start to talk about expensive collegiate degrees, people can spend hundreds, plural, of thousands of dollars on that endeavor, on the master apprentice model. Some people start private lessons when they're 3 years old. When it comes to getting advice from someone who is better at prioritizing, who is better, has expertise at copy, which is vital, right? The copy is the words that you use to get your ideas in front of the audience that you're meant to serve. This is not trying to trick anybody. But when you then, with a lot of musicians, if you say you should spend a bunch of money per hour to get well, let's just say an hour of TEM coaching, I know how valuable that is, and I have clients who can tell you how valuable that is, whether it's from me or from any number of other people. But if you don't believe that it's in your best interest to get outside advice on, like, ever, right? I mean, like 1, 2, 10 hours in a year on how to help you steer the ship of your career and all of the hats that we have to jump through. And if you don't believe that dropping, a couple $100 is going to end up saving you X number of hours, which if you were to actually do the math on what your hourly rate is, then your return on that couple $100 might be 5x or 10x. I think I could show you data to show you how good an idea it is to sign up for even just a one-off coaching to get your ideas straight. But if you don't believe it, like, then what, you're not, there's no chance you are going to click on TEM coaching, that you are going to reach out to me, that you are then going to give me your American Express card number so that I can help you for an hour. And so you need to make sure that your audience cares, and your words, again, not in a tricking them kind of way, because even if you were able to trick them, and people are smart, it's hard to do that. But even if I could trick somebody into a TEM coaching hour, they then get in there and it's not that helpful. And then they're not only not going to come back, they're going to tell people, like, no, he did not deliver what he said he was going to deliver. That's a super bad idea moving forward, right? Like, super bad idea. So, yeah. So, prove it, and how do I care? I really, I loved this video. I commented on her YouTube video where I said that it was super clear and actionable, and I thanked her for it. So, speaking of copy, I ran across an impossibly awful piece of copy from a major brand that just did a rebrand, and they were getting killed for it on Twitter. You should. This sentence actually appeared. This two sentences appeared in this long piece, which was clearly written by people who get paid a ton of money to do this. This brand identity is timeless yet contemporary. It's credible and independent, and stands out from the crowd with authority and swagger. Someone on tweeted, "Sounds like a joke from HBO's Silicon Valley." Like, actually, what a joke. Aside from just being stupid, why should the customer care about the brand identity and about, I mean, like, because they don't. I used to be a customer of this service, by the way. So this is not some like crazy, super esoteric thing, or this like, like this really elite and niche, like, B2B, like, business to business service that I wouldn't get. I used to use this service, and I don't anymore. But you can go to the show notes to find the link into for the reveal of who that is. It's worth reading. I was reading and reading and reading and reading because I used to use this, and I was like, wait, what did they change to? And then what did they change to? And what did they change? And then I skimmed it. To the point where I couldn't skim anymore, and I was like, okay, I'm out. And then I read the Twitter comments, and I was not alone. So I the only other thought here on Gill Andrews is that I just purchased her book last night. YouTube recommended a video from somebody who I had never heard of. And then I watched the video. I watched the whole thing, which is not that common, but it was really good. And it turns out that she has a book called "Making Your Website Work: 100 Copy and Design Tweaks for Smart Business Owners." It gets really good reviews on Amazon, and I bought it. Like, I bought it on the spot. It was like $15, $13, whatever it was. I'll report back, but that's the power of content right there, right? I am telling all of you about it. I am spreading the word that she has a book. I just told you the name of it. I told you, like, I mean, this is how ideas spread. And all she did was make a video, and now I am doing her marketing for her, which is exactly the kind of marketing that you want. All right. Lastly is Josh Spector, who is someone who provides services for creators. He has a newsletter, and this is the thing I wanted to plug, which I just signed up for a couple of weeks ago. It's called For the Interested, which is a very cool name for a newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter that has tons of really good content for creators of all kinds. This is not just for musicians, but I find that resources for creators almost always apply to all of us musicians who are creators as well. Last week's, for example, led me to an article on Morning Brew, which is this huge website which I knew nothing about, which was about sales. This was a piece called "Sales for Beginners: The Best Articles and Expert Resources," which I immediately bookmarked. I mean, that it's a pretty short thing, but it's like, I don't know, 40 links, 30, 40, 50 links, all on sales for beginners, like, which is just an invaluable resource to me. And I guarantee you I'm going to pass that along to TEM coaching clients when that kind of thing comes up. And they also had a marketing 101, and they had like a few. I'd never heard of Morning Brew. I did now. I stumbled on this gigantic amount of content, which Josh has his own, by the way, but because of Josh's newsletter. So I definitely recommend that. He also, this was from him actually, which it was his piece, but he wrote 41 sentence marketing tips. For example, number 11, you don't need a big budget, you need a big story, which resonates with a lot. I do have some people who listen to TEM who work for large organizations that have big budgets, but I think most of us, most of you in the audience look more like me, and you might have absolutely nothing to do with the tuba, nothing to do with classical music, nothing to do with jazz, like in the ecosystems that I hang out in. But it's more of like the portfolio career, one person or a few people, or it's a group, it's a chamber group or it's a band or that kind of thing. You don't need a huge marketing budget. You need a really big story that's super interesting. And I really liked but that post, for example, is packed with stuff. So check out Josh's For the Interested newsletter. Again, link is in the show notes. And I wanted to let you know that I have started doing something called TEM Coaching Chats, which I am streaming to the TEM YouTube channel. If you've not subscribed to that, you would make me very happy if you would. I'm up to, I think, 68. The next one will be my 69th subscriber. So please have you be that person. That would be awesome. But I'm trying to get to 100, I believe, is when you can actually choose your URL. And I'm getting there. I'm getting there slowly, but I am. We signed up for Caster. Pedal Note Media signed up for Caster to be able to multi-stream. So I'm also streaming to the TEM Facebook page. And I recently did one featuring some wisdom from Derek Sivers about not just trying to widen your networking circle, which is something that is obvious that we need to do, but also intentionally carving out time to nurture the context you already have, which that was a really impactful thing that I read from Derek, which I pass along, and I think that one's like 7 minutes total. And if you go to the TEM blog, then I have the YouTube video is embedded in a blog post there, but it also is has a little bit of a transcription there. So those are going to be regular, those TEM coaching chats. And I've been hopping on Instagram live on the TEM one there as well. Thank you to everyone for listening, subscribing, leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get TEM, and simply for your attention, the most valuable commodity any of us have to give. TEM is produced by Will Houchin and is a part of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. The theme music for TEM is played by Ben Barron, Rich Kelly, Daniel Lapel, and myself, Andrew Hitz. For show notes, the TEM blog, and to learn more about TEM coaching, please visit our new website, tem.fm. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And please subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, as I just mentioned. And that's going to do it for another episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician.